Hey, welcome to the next installment in my beginner series. This one's all about cutting expenses and how to get organized about where the money is going and trying to figure out how to assess yourself on how good of a job you're doing with your spending. Before I jump in on that, just wanted to say I saw this week that on the Leanfire subreddit, which is for people who want to retire early with low spending, someone was asking, what are your favorite like blogs or YouTube channels to learn about Leanfire? And I got a shout out. Two of you guys or gals went on there and said, check out Chase Juggler. He's got some cool stuff. So I appreciate that shout out. It kind of makes it more fun for me to do these when I know that they're actually helping people. So anyway, I want to begin with an analogy, kind of like I did on that investing video. And my analogy for this is a progress report at school. So when you're a student, or maybe you have a kid who's a student, and the semester's halfway over and progress reports come out, and let's say that you've got like an A in one class and a B in three classes, and you have a D in a class and an F in a class. Well, if that happens, like it's not just important that you spend more time studying. What's actually the most important thing is making sure that you spend more time studying the subjects that you suck at. If you have a B plus in one class and an F in another, you don't want to increase your study time in each of those subjects by 20%. No, you might even want to dial down the subject that you have an A in and study less, and do a lot more studying in the subject that you're failing, right? Because two C's is a lot more useful than one A and one F. And with personal finance and spending and expenses, I think it's the exact same thing. The first goal, the first order of business is you need to find out which category you suck at the most, because that's the category where you're going to make the easiest progress. And this is how Mary and I have cut our expenses together over the last 8 years, is at any given time, there's a category that we are the worst at, and that's the one where we start exploring new ideas or ways of doing things to try to cut those expenses. So let's talk about what those categories are. So when Mary and I started attacking our spending and trying to get expenses down, these were kind of the general categories that we came up with for where each dollar can go, because every dollar that you have, you got to think of it like it's like they're a soldier and you're assigning them to a battle that you're trying to win, and like each dollar has a job. And the best I can tell, like, this is kind of all of the different jobs that can be assigned to a dollar. You can make your own categories if you want to, but I think this is a pretty good start. Yeah. So what I want to do next, well, and you can read them for yourself, right? Housing, food, transportation, physical stuff. So this is like shopping or furniture. Taxes. A lot of people think that taxes are something that just happens to you, that are completely beyond your control. Nonsense. You have a ton of autonomy in choosing what your amount of taxes that you'll owe are based on decisions that you make. Healthcare is another one. Once you get educated, you have a ton of control over what you spend on healthcare. Entertainment, fees on investments, and then at the bottom in red I have income, because it is possible that the thing that you suck at the most is income, where you don't have a spending problem, you have an income problem, and you should throw all your efforts at trying to find a better job or something like that. Okay, so we are a family of two, and I want to show you what our approximate numbers are on each of these categories. And we've been working at this for a long time, so our expenses have gotten pretty good, although there's still areas that I would like to continue improving in. I mean, that's what being alive is all about, right? Trying to do better each day. But we're a family of two, and something that I think is very useful that you don't really find this very commonly in a lot of budgeting articles or blogs or whatever, is I like to figure out what my expenses are per day in a given category. So if you want to, you can like just try to see what your spending was in a month and divide it by 30, or in a year and divide by 365, something like that. But I find it useful because it helps me to kind of get a grip on where each of my dollars are going when the numbers are nice and small and I can kind of see what's going on. And these are all averages. I'm not saying that like there aren't any days where we spend more than $14 on food. Of course there are. It's just these are what my averages have been after a long time, from just measuring these. And you got to measure stuff in order to improve, because if you don't actually know where all of your dollars are currently going, how fast they're being spent or whatever, then it's difficult to improve because you can't actually tell if your expenses are getting bigger or smaller. But anyway, these numbers are where we're currently at on these various categories, and it all kind of adds up to our current income, which is about $82 per person per day. That's not per work day, that's per calendar day. So 365 days in a year, we earn about $82 per day combined on average. But yeah, that's where all our money goes. So I guess my big question to you is, what are your numbers? About how many dollars are you spending per day in each category? And the idea here isn't to shame anyone if their numbers are higher or lower or whatever. It's just that you should put in the time to find out what they are and figure out which category you're sucking at the most that you want to kind of put some effort into. Recently, we've been throwing a lot of effort at the healthcare department. We made some big changes to how we're doing health insurance. I might make a video about that later. What else? We also recently pushed our food spending down a good bit by changing how we do restaurant food. But yeah, it really helps to paint a picture of what all the dollars are doing. And if you have a category where the numbers are pretty darn high, then time to figure out how to get those numbers down. So the next question is, once you figure out which category you suck at the most, how do you start hammering it? All right, so this is the last part of the video. You know which part you're the worst at. How do you get better? And it's kind of similar to what you would do in that school example. If you're failing math, one of the best things you can do is find someone who's better at it than you are and find out what they're doing that's different and copy them. It's a lot easier to copy someone else who's already been successful than it is to pave your own way and try to figure out your own stuff. And the way that Mary and I did that over the last 8 years is there are a handful of different online forums and groups and blogs that we have found to be very helpful, where they have articles on, different parts of these different categories to get those expenses down. I'm going to include links in the description to all these that I'm about to mention, but I'm going to say them out loud too, because why not? So, Mr. Money Mustache, he's a blogger, and there's a forum for it, and there's some Facebook groups for it, and it's an enormous community of people who are obsessed with cutting their expenses and becoming wealthy so they can retire early. Very, very useful community. Lots of knowledgeable people on every single topic that I talked about for those different categories. Early Retirement Extreme is a blog where it's a guy who, he takes it a little farther than I do. His numbers are lower than the ones that you saw that I wrote, that we're currently doing. But he's got a lot of good ideas. And if you want to get an idea of what's possible, what the limits are for pushing your spending down and how you can actually do that, check him out. Go Curry Cracker is another good blogger. They talk about optimizing taxes and health insurance and the Affordable Care Act and stuff a lot, and I found those articles to be very useful. So that's a good one to check out. Another one is Mad Fientist. He talks a lot about how to do vacations cheaply by signing up for credit card rewards, and how to use retirement accounts to keep your tax burden down. Mad Fientist is a great place for beginners on tax optimization. Root of Good is a blogger who lives really close to where I am. I'm in Durham, North Carolina. He's in Raleigh, North Carolina, and very good for. I think they keep their expenses down to an impressive level, and he had one blog post about comparing different grocery stores and seeing which ones were better for different prices, and it kind of opened my eyes to the idea that for keeping food costs down, it's important not to get all your groceries from one or two grocery stores. You should probably go to several and compare them and hit each one for their various strengths, and don't buy their weaknesses. Don't buy the stuff that's expensive at one grocery store, buy it at another. The last place that I think is really useful is various places on Reddit. So the Financial Independence subreddit is good. Leanfire is good. Eat Cheap and Healthy is a wonderful resource for figuring out really good recipes that other people can say, yeah, I cooked this, it's not terrible. And they're all very cheap. Kind of teaches you how to get started on cooking with very cheap, healthy, good tasting ingredients. Let's see. Are there any other ones that come to mind? Personal finance is decent. Investing is decent. Lots of different places on Reddit that you can kind of explore to try to make progress in whatever topic you're the worst at. Another thing that I should include is one of the categories I had here for expenses is fees on investments. And I wrote negligible because if you followed my how to invest video and you're buying index funds, then your fees are very close to zero. You should never pay very much in fees on investments. That's generally not something that should ever happen. So that one's actually pretty easy. You don't need a fancy blog to tell you to buy index funds. Just buy the stupid index funds. I might make another video about that later. But yeah, that's about it. So that's how you get organized. You got to find out what your expenses actually are and start attacking the categories one by one on any given month. Figure out which category needs the most attention and just slay it. Get those numbers down.